The year was 1826. Margarita stood on the fortifications of Diros, somewhere in the southern part of the Peloponnese, watching as the mighty Turco-Egyptian army of Ibrahim began its assault to breach into the region. She took out her family's arms, a pistol from her mother's grandfather, who had perished in the Orlov revolt in the 1770s, and the sword from her father's ancestor, who died as a pirate during the Ottoman-Venetian Wars in the 1680s. Margarita looked at the advancing Ottomans and lifted her pistol. They would not pass. This fictional story encapsulates the legend of the Maniots, the inhabitants of the middle peninsula of the Peloponnese in Greece. Known for legendary connections to Sparta, ruthless piracy, and fierce vendettas and martial spirit, the people of Mani are shrouded in legends. Their story tells the tale of a proud and independent people that stand out from the rest of Greece. A people who held to the gods of Olympus for centuries after the rest of Hellas converted to Christianity, and who, unlike the rest of the Greek world, were never fully subjugated by the Ottoman Empire. Welcome to our video on the history and culture of the Maniots, the pirate warlords of Greece.
Want a force as fierce as the Maniots fighting for your independence online? Then look no further than our sponsor NordVPN, bringing you a special offer at nordvpn.com/kingsandgenerals. You probably know about how VPNs let you change your location online, and NordVPN is no exception. But your NordVPN subscription also brings you complete internet security on all your devices, even if you don't use the VPN part of the service. You'll get access to their Threat Protection Pro suite, which blocks sneaky connections to malicious advertisements or websites, detects fake stores pretending to offer things at lower prices, and sniffs out phishing attempts to steal your data and/or money, even in cases where the scam is brand new and hasn't been detected before, thanks to their machine learning phishing detector features. You get all these services usually only found in premium security software, plus NordVPN encrypts all your internet traffic and routes it through international servers of your choice if needs be, meaning you can shake off both criminals and surveillance, especially useful for bypassing regional restrictions or censorship. So get all these one-click tools for your digital life with the added bonus of our special offer. Claim 4 months of extra coverage for free on your 2-year plan when you sign up at nordvpn.com/kingsandgenerals. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in giving it a go. That's nordvpn.com/kingsandgenerals.
To understand the history of the Maniots, it is important to understand the region from which they come. Mani is the middle peninsula of the Peloponnese region of southern Greece, located south of the ancient Spartan heartland of Laconia. It possesses a rugged, mountainous landscape that makes traversing through it a difficult task. The inner hinterland of Mani has hardly ever been conquered by outsiders due to how hard it is to penetrate. Inaccessible by land, Mani is most easily reached by sea, with bays throughout the peninsula that allow for the landing of small ships. The region is somewhat arid, which makes water management key for people's survival. Consequently, the Maniots built extensive networks of wells, cisterns, and water tanks that surround their settlements to this day. Other impacts of geography on people's lives are seen in the architecture of Mani. Maniots used to live in longhouse-style buildings that housed entire extended family units, whilst their elites lived in the various castles and forts dotted across the peninsula's many hills. These citadels, which have their origins in medieval Byzantine and Frankish fortification styles, were usually situated in strategic regions, allowing Maniot chieftains to fight off invaders and control their serfs in the surrounding plots of land. Despite the notion that Maniots were nothing more than bandits and pirates, they did, in fact, have other economic occupations. Throughout the medieval and Ottoman periods, the Maniots exported olive oil, honey, nuts, and even small quantities of wine, resulting in a quintessentially Greek agricultural and economic base. Another fascinating aspect of the Maniots was their cultural organization. The Maniots were rarely united under one ruler, spending most of their history divided into large patrilineal clans that often feuded with one another. Throughout their history, The Maniots are characterized by a fierce independence streak. Foreign dignitaries and travelers mention that almost all Maniots carried arms, including women. Maniot women were known to be fierce and stalwart, fighting in battle alongside their fathers and husbands. However, the Maniots were still patriarchal, and men were in charge of all political and cultural affairs. During pre-modern times, Maniot society was divided into two main classes. At the top of the social strata were the Niklianoi, the elites who owned land and served as the leaders of Mani's various pirate bands. At the bottom were the Akamnoteroi, who were essentially peasant serfs. The Niklianoi were historically divided along clan lines. However, during the Ottoman period, they sometimes came together in a Council of the Elders, known as the Gerontikon, to elect a local commander to lead them against their common Ottoman enemy. Maniots possessed a code of honor, which they upheld vigorously. This was manifested in their vendettas, where rivalries between families often turned into intergenerational blood feuds. Mani was not the only region in Greece with a tradition of mafia-like vendettas, but grudges in Mani were fiercer and longer-lasting than anywhere else in Hellas. A proud and bellicose people, the Maniots never forgot trespassers against them until they had taken their revenge in blood, no matter how long it took. With that said, Mani's culture was not just about violence and murder. The Maniots have a powerful and evocative tradition of moirologia, or lamenting songs, recited by women when a member of the community passes away. Thus, when a Maniot is taken to their grave to be buried, they are always accompanied by the tragic melodies, expounding their achievements and virtues in life. Having established the foundations of Maniot culture, we can now move on to their history. According to Greek mythology, the island of Mani was where a dolphin saved the Greek god Poseidon and took him to land, explaining why there is a famous shrine to Poseidon at the southern tip of Mani in Tainaros. During the Bronze Age, Mani was part of the broader cultural developments in Greece and was likely influenced by the Mycenaean Greek culture, which blossomed between 1500 to 1100 BCE. The end of the Bronze Age brought with it the geometric period of 1100 to 800 BCE, of which we have no written records. By the time of the Archaic period of 800 to 480 BCE, Mani appeared to be one of the provinces under the control of the famous city-state of Sparta. Due to Mani's historical ties to Sparta, a modern notion has arisen that the modern Maniots represent a genetically pure strain of the ancient Spartan people, untainted by outside influence. This myth began with Western travelers in the region, was adopted by Greek nationalists in the 20th century, and was propagated by the state. Ultimately, the idea that the Maniots are so-called pure Spartans is groundless, for Mani was, like the rest of Greece, influenced by various migrations throughout its many centuries of history. The peninsula's connections to Sparta led it to be involved in all the major wars fought by the Spartans, including the Greco-Persian Wars and the Peloponnesian Wars fought against Athens and its allies. Later, like the rest of a then declining Sparta, Mani was left out of Alexander the Great's conquests, and the wars fought between his successors across the fragments of his massive Eurasian empire. We know little about Mani's local politics during these centuries, so we can assume that it broadly went along with Sparta, until the whole of Greece was annexed by Rome in 146 BCE. Alongside Laconia and Sparta, Mani had a relatively quiet existence during the Roman period. Sparta itself became a tourist destination for curious Roman citizens who wanted to see their now antiquated lifestyle preserved in this small pocket of Hellas. Slowly, the wheels of time turned. Rome moved its capital to Constantinople, then split in half, kicking off the Byzantine Age. During the 5th century, as the western half of the empire fell to Germanic invaders, the religion of Christianity was quickly replacing the many pagan faiths of the Eastern Mediterranean. One of the lone holdouts against Christianization was the peninsula of Mani, whose people remained faithful to the ancient Greek gods of Olympus until the 10th century CE, over 600 years after the rest of Greece had embraced Christianity. In spite of this, Mani spent the era of late antiquity as a nominal part of the Byzantine, or Eastern Roman Empire. During this time, the Maniots appear to have faced much of the same turbulence as the rest of Greece did, contending with the Gothic incursions in the 4th century CE and, later, the descent of the Slavic tribes in the 6th century CE. Fighting off these invasions was a fact of life for many Maniots, hardening them into a militaristic, warlike people. During the 9th century CE, the first churches appeared in Mani, indicating a concerted effort by the Byzantines to Christianize the region. This process was completed in the 10th century CE, with the region embracing the future Orthodox Church, largely through the works of the Byzantine monk Nikon Mitanoiete. However, the coming fracture of the Byzantine Empire at the hands of the Latins was bound to bring a change in administration to a peninsula so close to the Catholic world. In 1204 CE, the Eastern Roman capital of Constantinople was conquered by an army of Western European crusaders in the ill-fated Fourth Crusade. Thereafter, the Western Latins carved up the Byzantine Empire among themselves, with the region of Mani annexed by one Geoffrey de Villehardouin as part of the Latinate Principality of Achaia. This period saw the construction of some Latin-style castles in Mani, which inspired later forts built by Maniot elites. In addition, the combination of Byzantine medieval social structures and Latin feudal structures led to the formation of the feudal class system that came to define Mani in later centuries. After a period of Latin rule, the Maniots came under the control of the Despotate of Mistras, the Byzantine successor state which ruled the southern Peloponnese from 1349 to 1460 CE. This Byzantine holdout survived even after the fall of Constantinople in 1453 CE, and even after its fall 6 years later, the Maniots continued to resist Ottoman rule. When Sultan Mehmed II invaded the Peloponnese, he wanted to avoid open battle with the Maniots, desiring not to waste resources invading a hostile mountainous territory inhabited by warlike natives. At the time, the Maniots were gathered under the leadership of a chieftain named Krokodilos Kladas. Krokodilos rejected any form of Ottoman suzerainty, opting instead to ally with the Venetians against the Islamic Sultan. The Ottomans made several attempts to subjugate Mani, but did not succeed in subduing the region until 1479, when the Venetian allies of the Maniots fled, along with Krokodilos, who went on to continue fighting against the Ottomans in Epirus. Even after this, the Maniots continued to resist the Ottomans relentlessly, seeking help from the Kingdom of Spain and the various states of Italy to support their continued revolt. Ottoman control of Mani was always prone to destabilization, particularly when the geopolitical situation allowed for it. For instance, Mani was left practically independent between 1500 and 1570 CE because the Ottomans were busy pushing the Venetians out of the Peloponnese. After repeated skirmishes against the Sultan's forces and continuous appeals to the papacy to gain Spanish support, the Maniots had to accept partial suzerainty to the Ottomans by 1572 CE. However, a Maniot is not so easily left to be someone's servant. In 1619, they revolted once again, electing an Italian noble as their leader, the Duke of Nevers, Charles I Gonzaga. The Duke of Nevers sent some ships and soldiers to join the Maniots in their insurrection, inciting a major retaliation by the Ottomans. The start of the 30 Years' War in Europe led to the withdrawal of Charles' forces and left the Maniots to fend for themselves. After this, the Maniots retreated back to their mountain villages, only to lead another revolt in 1649, which also ended in failure. During the 6th Venetian-Ottoman War of 1684 to 1699 CE, the Maniots joined forces with the Catholics once again. By this time, the Maniots were active pirates and participants in the Mediterranean slave trade. Consequently, many Maniot pirate warlords joined the Venetians in raids on Ottoman-occupied Crete. Many of the Maniot sea dogs became famous and wealthy during these conflicts. Foremost among these rugged celebrities was Liverios Gerakakis, who held the Sultan-approved title of Mani Bey, or ruler of the Maniots. The Ottomans retaliated against Maniot piracy with naval and military raids in Mani, causing much devastation. The result of this was the emigration of many Maniots to places like the Ionian Islands and the Isle of Corsica. which was then part of the Italian Republic of Genoa. In Corsica, the Maniots managed to establish a colony in 1676 CE under the rule of the Stephanopoulos family near the city of Cargisi. Even in exile on a Catholic island, they continued their piratical ways and maintained their Greek Orthodox faith, setting boundaries between themselves and the Corsicans. The distinct cultural identity of the Greek-speaking Maniots on Corsica survived until the 19th century. Meanwhile, Mani itself was retaken by the Ottomans in 1719, but more revolts were on the way. During the Orlov Revolt of 1770, the Russian Empress Catherine the Great sent 2 members of the noble Orlov family to try to instigate a Christian revolt in Greece in a conspiracy to resurrect the Byzantine Empire as a Russian vassal state. Part of this revolt occurred in Mani, where a certain Alexei Orlov arrived and organized an insurrection alongside the Maniot warlord Ioannis Mavromikalis. The Ottomans yet again responded with tremendous force, launching a 10-year invasion of the Mani Peninsula. Many of the ancestors of the later Greek War of Independence fought in this revolt, including the renowned Mavromikalis family. Ultimately, the Orlov revolt ended in failure due to organizational chaos between the Russian and Greek troops. Consequently, the Maniots saw many of their notables captured and executed for their collaboration with the Orlovs. Still, they managed to maintain a local autonomous ruler, or bey, who would send tribute to the Ottomans in exchange for the Mani Peninsula's continued self-governance. This autonomous nature allowed for Mani to play host to the Philiki Etairia, the secret society which instigated the Greek Revolution of 1821. At the onset of the Greek War of Independence, the warlords of Mani were among the very first Greeks to raise the flag of rebellion against the Ottoman Empire. They fought valiantly in many battles against the Sultan's troops, in places like Tripolitsa, Valtetsi, and Dervenakia, which we have discussed in our Greek Revolution series. So strong was Maniot resistance that during the low point of the revolution, when the rest of Greece crumbled under the advance of the invincible Egyptian general Ibrahim Pasha, the Maniots held the line, repelling Ibrahim Pasha from parts of Mani in 1826 in battles like that of Polyaravo. The Greek War of Independence was won with the help of allies from the West, and the nation of modern Greece was born thereafter. However, the autonomous nature of the Maniots did not subside with the achievement of Hellenic independence. Upon removing the Ottomans from the Peloponnese and southern Greece, the Greeks proceeded to begin political squabbling amongst themselves for their own fiefdoms. The Maniot elites were no exception to this, as they came out in strict opposition to the centralizing policies of the first president of Greece, Ioannis Kapodistrias. This escalated into a dispute between Kapodistrias and the Maniots, which resulted in the imprisoning of the famous Maniot war hero Petrobes Mavromikalis. Being a people born and bred on blood feuds, the Maniots would not let this stand. Soon after, Kapodistrias was murdered by Mavromikalis' relatives as part of the Maniot tradition of vendettas. The Maniots consequently continued to refuse to acknowledge outside authority when the great powers of Europe imposed the German noble Otto of Bavaria as king of the young nation of Greece. In fact, Bavarian troops attacked Mani multiple times from 1831 to 1834 with little to no success. In some instances, like the Battle of Areopolis, the Maniots staged a night sneak attack and massacred many Bavarian soldiers. Eventually, Otto and his noble allies sent a diplomat named Max Feder to Mani, who negotiated a peace which saw the Maniots properly incorporated into the Kingdom of Greece's military and civil officers. The pro-Otto Maniots then turned on the anti-Otto Maniots and subdued an insurgency in its larval stages. Otto even performed a tour of Mani, where he inspected schools and the region's broader agriculture, showing that he had cemented control over the region. However, vendettas continued in Mani throughout the 19th century, showing that the old habits of the Maniots really did die hard. The 19th century saw many noble Maniot families, such as the Mavromikali, become prominent political figures in the Greek nation-state, participating in the revolt against King Otto in 1843 and becoming high-ranking military officers. When regions of Greece still under Ottoman rule, such as Crete and Macedonia, revolted against the Sultan, the Maniots fought alongside them, either as independent contractors or as military officers of the Kingdom of Greece. During the period of civil divide in Greece during the First World War, most Maniots joined with the royalist forces of King Constantinos against the liberal forces of the politician Eleftherios Venizelos. Maniots also took part in the Second World War, where they fought against the Nazis in Epirus alongside British troops. Other Maniots joined the Nazi collaborator security units during the German occupation of Greece. After the conclusion of World War II, Maniots fought on both sides of the Greek Civil War, with some taking up arms against the communists and others fighting alongside them. The region of Mani saw much depopulation during the 20th century, as many emigrated abroad or went to large cities like Athens and Kalamata. Today, Mani is a sleepy little part of the Peloponnese, with an economy mostly subsisting on tourism. However, the cultural heritage of the Maniots has survived and is preserved in the forts, churches, and old longhouses of the remaining Maniot villages. Margarita stood on the battlefield as she held her family weapons, having managed to repel the Ottomans from Diros. She looked at the mountainous landscapes of her homeland and smiled. Though rugged, this land was where she had grown up. Margarita is one of the many militant Maniots who fought for their autonomy against multiple forces. Their history is one of many contradictions, one of both rugged individualism and feudal oppression, of slave raiding and freedom fighting. The Maniots were pirates and raiders, but they were also rebels, a contradiction that defines much of Mediterranean history regardless of ethnicity. What makes the Maniots unique is how they maintain such a distinct identity, even from other Greeks, and how fierce they were in maintaining that independence. Thus, the pirate warlords of Hellas, the southernmost Peloponnesians, are like the mountains of Mani itself, tough to break, but also powerful and proud. More videos on the history of medieval and modern Greece are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing. It helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can watch more than 200 exclusive videos. Join their ranks via the link in the description or by pressing the join button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.